I am going to begin the introduction to the platform and what services and features you can access through there. This is our login page for the platform itself. Question we're often asked is, how do I register? We currently don't have a self-registration process, although it is a community platform where we encourage everyone to add their own content. Unfortunately, at the moment you can't register yourself because it's in development essentially. So do a standard Google DAFNI with an F, come to our more commercial site, and then here you have contact, and here you can find our contact details here. Drop us a line, basically. Part of this whole webinar seminar here is about engaging you and hopefully pulling you in to become involved, and this is the first place to come if you would like to talk to us beyond this. And I should just say, as I go through the platform, we have a bit of time for questions afterwards, so please do either raise your hand in the participants area or log a chat message and we'll come to them afterwards. Best raise them as you go along because we might lose them. So when you log into the platform, then you see that we have three substantial areas of work at the moment. So three main types of asset. So we have data, and we have models, and we have workflows that we that users are have ownership of and can create and share. The manage assets section here we're not going to cover, but that's the area where people can share those assets. I'm going to look at the data section now, and then Tom will take you through models and workflows shortly. Before I click into data, just want to let you know, so we are currently in the final phases of a major upgrade to our data pages. And instead of showing you the old pages, I'd like to show you the new ones. So this is actually our internal data holdings. When I click on here. So you can see our data catalogue. We have 162 data sets in our internal data holdings. And as you can see, a lot of them are test data sets. We use this area for testing new features and functionality as they come and for model development work. So, and our external data holdings, this page on the public site, we have substantially more data sets, although we are always looking for more collaboration and yeah, to work with you to bring more data and relevant data for your research area on board. So now when you're on the data pages here, the catalogue page, the emphasis that we're giving is hopefully is targeted towards your exploration of the data and users finding data easily. So first pass, we have some filters that you can attach here. If you know the data that you're looking for begins with an A, for example, you can use that. And if you're conducting a search, then you can focus on the most relevant data set. So say, for example, you were interested in what model outputs there are on DAFNI, and model seems like a reasonable search term. So this term searches the title, some keywords, etc. Now we'll look at an example of a data set. So this is a model output that was created by this long ID number. So this is a feature of the fact that we're on the internal site at the moment to show you these pages. That long ID number is actually the ID of the DAFNI modeling service. So there's quite a few of these data sets that have that ID number on them at the moment. It actually comes in useful later on. And so you can see we have some information about when this data set was created, who it was created by, a long text string, which is not formatting nicely here, but you can see there's quite, scope for putting a lot of information about a data set and really pulling out the key factors of it and what people would be interested in. Then some space and time information, so the spatial coverage of that data and the temporal coverage of that data. Underneath the map, we have some of the data files themselves. Along with some additional metadata down here and some keywords. To download the data, it literally is as easy as clicking on the file. And then we download the data through the browser. Back up to the top here, we also have some information about the accessibility of the data set. So this plays into that Manage Assets page and the idea that assets and data and models and workflows are owned by the users of the platform. So they're really community assets. And here we have different access levels. So data can be fully open, where anyone can see the data sets and the files themselves. It can be view only, where only the metadata is available, or it can be entirely closed, where only the user has access to it. So we display that information here. We also give the ID of the data set itself. This is useful for propagating that data set through to models that you might want to run using this data. And we also have some license information about the data set. So if I go back to the main page, we can use these fields. So I should have said the fields that you saw on that previous page, and that's part we've been as part of the upgrade, we've upgraded our metadata standard as well. So we have moved away from a kind of light touch Dublin core standard to using DCAT as our basis, DCAT version 2. And so using that has enabled us also to support much more detailed and granular search capabilities. So you can search for data over a particular time. So let's say, for example, we wanted to pick out all data which covers 2019. And then you can see now we're focusing on data sets who have dates in the year of 2019. We can select full access data only. So that is, it's a bit like on booking.com, where you can say only show me hotels which are actually available. It's a bit like that. So that's only show me data sets where I would actually be able to access those data files themselves, as opposed to data sets where I can see only the metadata. We can select on the source of the data. So here again, you're seeing that long ID number of the modeling service on our staging site. So I can use this to select outputs of models that we're using on the staging part of DAFNI. I can also select by subject, which we'll come back to a bit later. And we can narrow down on format as well. So if format is something that you're interested in, you can look for data of a particular format only. So that's how you would find data on DAFNI and how it might look. But as I said, we're a community platform, and so encouraging people to add content to DAFNI in collaboration with us, and with a view to building up a network of information to support users running models and discovering data outputs from models in the future, and really bringing members of the infrastructure community together. So to upload a data set, I'm going to take you through this and give you an idea of the steps involved, and hopefully demystify, not that it's particularly mysterious. So to upload files, then you will drop them into this area, or you can click browse and go through. You tick to say that you're sure that all of your files are there, and then you upload them. So at this point, they're uploaded to a temporary bucket. We do this step first because we're aware that some people may have very large data sets. And so by doing this stage in parallel with the metadata process, here it happened very quickly, but you would be able to have a huge data set uploading for the amount of time that it took you to complete the field, for example. Yeah, maybe 5 minutes. So we put in some title information. I'm going to, and a description. For identifier here, then we are encouraging users to add a DOI to the data set. So building and establishing the link between the data set as it is on DAFNI and its presence in the outside world. So we choose a subject. These are taken from ISO 19115. But we anticipate that this is an area where this ontology here and this vocabulary here of inspire spatial data themes, we're using to kind of classify the data sets, but we expect we have some research work being done with a consortium involving researchers at UCL, and we're expecting that that might bring some changes to this and have a richer vocabulary to describe the data that we have on DAFNI, which is specifically designed for DAFNI. You choose your language. We have the British Isles languages at the top there. and select a keyword. And I'm also going to add in a word that we shouldn't have elsewhere on the platform. In fact, let's go this. If you have any standards which your data conforms to, then we can add those in. So I've got an example here of an ISO standard. So here we get to dataset coverage. Because in the data pages, then we are allowing users to upload any format of data. Then at the moment, inspecting that data computationally and ascertaining the spatiotemporal coverage of that data set isn't in scope for DAFNI at the moment. So we're asking users to self-report the spatiotemporal coverage of their data. So let's say, for example, our data is for the area of Bristol, and it is in the month of June, for example. And then the penultimate field, we are again creating that link between DAFNI, the internal world of DAFNI and the external world in which this data set resides. So we ask for an organization name. I'm going to use DAFNI here and an ID. You can add people to this data set as well. So if you want to identify particular individuals in the organization, you can have one or many who are linked to that data set. The date the data set was created, so let's say it was created today. You can add an update frequency in there if your data, you expect it to be updated on a regular basis. Let's say ours is, for example, irregular. If you have any intermediary publication services which are holding that data set, for example, data.gov, then there's an opportunity you can put those in here. We do request that you provide a contact point here as well. So this is the person who you will contact to ask about the data set and you know, whether there are any questions around use or access, etc. So it's required that you provide a license for the data. We suggest a Creative Commons license, but you are able to change that should you wish. So for example, if you prefer to use the MIT license, you could use it here. And then to give a sentence on the rights associated with the data. And then a brief note on the data set itself and this particular instance, the data. So I'll show you in a moment, but we are supporting versioning on the site. So you'll be able to upload, to update the metadata or the data set itself. And then this just gives some traceability notes as to what the changes have been. It's like a commit message on GitHub, essentially. And then we publish the data. So we can see that it's turned up at the top here as the most recent data set. And then if I click in, we can see our brand new data set for the area of Bristol with our 2 text files and our additional metadata, and then links to the various bits around. So the license information here will then take us to that MIT license that I put in. And we have links to DAFNI, and the contact point as well is in there. Maybe you can see at the bottom of the mail too, hovering up. And very briefly, once this data set is up there, then you're also able to edit. So if you realize you made a mistake or your data has been updated or you've reprocessed, for example, then you could come back and update that. We would require you to, if you're changing files, you would need to change all of them. At the moment, that's something we may come to later on. And then you can change some of the text here or any part of the metadata. And provide a new update note and click publish new version. We do also support deleting as well. So if you no longer want this file to be associated with you, or you no longer want it to be on the platform, then you can delete it, either the version of that particular version or the entire data set. And that, I think, covers the data side of things in detail. So I'll now pass over to Tom.